brings us right here to an orange made with Alizarin Crimson. If you don't have Alizarin and you want to use the same colors I'm using for your color palette mixing, you can use quinacridone. They're very close. Alizarin's more expensive. I don't have a strong feeling on whether one's better or not. So, and then this is Indian Yellow Hue. And then on this side, Cerulean Blue Deep. You may have Chromium Blue, which is kind of like a fake cerulean. And that works too. I just prefer cerulean a little bit more. I think it's got more range. So I'm gonna mix equal amounts to start of the alizarin. I'm gonna try to give myself enough paint too that I'm not making tiny little piles toward the center. After painting that underpainting, I'm kind of happy just to focus on the method of the color mixing. Another thing I need to think about is the size of the paper that I'm painting is 22 by 30 inches, so I don't want to be too casual about the amount of paint I mix, because I'm going to need a lot of paint to cover that amount of surface. If you're painting on a 16 inch by 20 inch, you know, that's much less, so it's about half as much. Now see, this is really dark, and it's because that crimson is so much stronger than the Indian yellow, and I could pretty much, now that I'm looking at it, I could squeeze out like half a tube, not half a tube, but half of what I have left in this tube to try to get this to orange up or yellow up more. But instead I'm going to just take half of this large amount of paint. It's kind of a wine color. I'm going to put it off to the side. I'm going to make a note, this is sort of an estimate, but that I'm going to do 75% Indian yellow and 25% Alizarin Crimson. Because I really do want this, and I do have, this tube's running out, but I do have another tube of Indian yellow somewhere in my bag. Just gonna let's just say that ratio is a lot of Indian yellow to a little bit of crimson. And this is what I wanted. A little more of that fire. Now, because there's not as much red in this, and also I brought a palette knife I don't like very much to class today. It's just one of those kind of older, more elementary style. Like if you buy a paint kit, they'll send you one of these because they're cheaper. I can't stand mixing with it. It's not flexible enough. It doesn't give me enough range. It'll do in a pinch, but they're great for when you start getting a lot of paint on your knife, just scraping off so that you're not wiping tons of paint onto your rag or paper towel or whatever you're using to clean your palette knife. this in a pile. If you pile your paint up rather than stretch it out, it'll stay wet longer. It won't dry as fast. I still want that to be yellower, but I'm gonna wait and see, because I feel like when I go to tint it, that it's gonna be very beautiful the way it is. So it's just that it doesn't have any light value in it. And then over here, put out the Cerulean Blue. Let's see what happens when we go to the center. It might turn quite green since that's a heavier yellow. Yep, that's good. I've got green in this painting. Just go like this and work my way over towards the blue. I really think this is a beautiful palette. And it may be leaning a little, this could have been a little browner maybe if I had added a little more, but we'll see what happens as I stretch across here. Maybe leaning a little on the blue side. Just trying to gauge those steps between the blue to orange. Oh, this might be too blue. No, I'll keep mixing it. Sometimes, you know, I swipe it 6 times, 7 times, it's not enough. Because the more you mix it, it'll settle down. I think I got that right where it needs to be. And it may not look like the most interesting color here. Now it's kind of a coffee color, but I'm hoping as I tint that lighter that it's gonna work out well for my skull color. And I think this one could go a little closer to. Now, I changed that. And it changes how it relates to here. I'd still say it's a fairly even jump between here to here, whereas this is a very close jump, and this is a very close jump. I'm gonna leave that. I often like the colors right out here that are just slightly pushed from what comes, the pigment that comes right from a tube, so I'm not going to change that. And now I'm going to put out some titanium white, work on tinting. just going to start over here on the left side, my orange. I'd venture to say this is a color that looks better on a white background. This gray is not doing me any favors today, but I'm still pretty happy with it. And I want that value that's just a little bit lighter. It's kind of a rusty orange color. How light in value your whites go, or your tints go, I make those choices a lot based on what I'm looking at. There's not a lot of this color right here in my painting, unless I choose to paint this value right here is a good color for this pink fabric that you can see up here. Value-wise, it's not the right tone, but I might decide to paint it that because it'll look good with the kind of magenta of the peonies. That'll be a decision I won't make today, like where that's gonna land. To something I'll decide later on. Now here, this color, I'm starting to think about my bone color, which is very light in value. And so I'm pushing this even lighter. It's gonna be out here. It's a little warm, but there is some places where the highlights are hitting the bone that'll be helpful to me. I'm hoping that this color right here is going to be cool, and yes, it's perfect. So put that here, but so I'm mixing right here in the center. I'm starting to mix more than 1 or 2 tints. I have 3 for this color. It's just there's a lot of that white going on in the painting, so I might as well give myself more value variations on it. And this color too is going to work nicely for the bone color. This is probably actually the closest one. It wouldn't be correct in portraying what this deer skull looks like. Let's see if I can get it to sit over here. It wouldn't be correct in portraying it just by itself, here and here, but it is with these more warm colors over here, like the going back and forth between them. And I think you can kind of see like how there's a shadow in the eye socket here, and that's pretty close to this. So I'm on the right track. Whereas this blue right here, as we go toward the cerulean, that's just too bright. That's like a swimming pool color. Doesn't mean I might not toss a little bit of that in there, but it's not going to be the priority color or the main color. I might layer it underneath and then come back over top with some of these later values, just to kind of give it a bit of a halo. But for the sake of my color card mostly, and for a teaching example, I'm going to keep tinting these. If I was mixing on my own just to do a painting without an audience right now, I may not mix out the tints this far over because I don't really need these. Although, you know, I might to use for an underpainting for like creating that kind of static in the background. When I moved the skull, my flowers just all fell on the floor. It's kind of funny. But I do want to make a color card with this palette. And I'm going to need to put more white paint out. Don't be afraid to use more paint. Don't be too stingy. This sounds awful, but I'd rather you waste paint than be too careful, because you'll be trying to work around it and it's gonna limit you. I also think that trying to give yourself a feeling and a sense of abundance is helpful, like to think that your time and what you're making is worth using this extra material. And really, it doesn't have to go to waste. You can put it on another piece of paper, and sooner or later there'll be a reason to paint on that piece of paper. And if you're like, and I've been there where I'm running out of paint colors and I can't get more, you have those kind of limitations, you can paint monochromatically, you can paint in black and white. You could paint in black and white for 2 years and it would only make you a better painter. You don't always have to paint in color. So also, if you're like feeling like you have time limits, just do a monochromatic exercise 1 week. Don't worry about the color mixing. You don't always have to do everything, or just take your brown and do a bunch of underpaintings with the burr number, just for the sake of doing the underpaintings, not for trying to make a finished painting. Because the movement and the practice and the muscle memory, it's going to lend itself to helping you in the long run. If anything, I think that's the new painters, what you need the most is to be able to just practice without trying to finish work, because the how to finish a piece, that'll come with time and you'll build your way up to it. Right now you might be making a lot of paintings that, and I don't say this to be mean, but they're not worth finishing. Like if you're painting yourself into a corner, like don't waste time trying to fix it. Use your time to try to reorient and restart, because getting that balance at the start is more what you need to be learning right now than how to go into a painting that you started and you don't like and how to fix it. part of what you need to like about your work is the balance from the start. And once you get good at landing the start and the underpainting, then the other things will slowly come together. I'm very happy with this palette scale. I like where it's going, and my underpainting that I did already has a lot of darks on it, so I'm gonna mix a little bit of dark. My tendency is to not want to, but I think it'll be good. So I'm looking for my ultramarine blue, and I'm gonna flip this over. I'm gonna put out some ultramarine blue. I won't regret this once I actually start painting. Burn umber. Now, because this is an orange to blue palette, there's a lot of browns going on in here. And I just put a little more brown out than blue. And so I want this blue, or I want my black color to lean bluer. So I'm giving a little extra ultramarine there. Probably a little too much. We'll see how this mixes down. You know, I felt that was leaning really dark, but you can see how much darker the value is of this. So I'm not going to do 2 or 3 steps on the shades like I did with the whites. Just gonna come through here and deepen each of these colors. And you see that went really dark really fast, so put this to the side, clean off my palette knife. Let's try again. If I do that with everyone, I will be doing 2 to 3 steps of the dark. Just want it a little deeper. So that's good. Cleaning off my knife. 1 step out for you. Back over here to the black. Oop. Start with less rather than more. This is strong. Also, Alizarin Crimson and Indian Yellow aren't very strong pigments, so what's going to happen in relationship to this darker mixture is they're gonna want to concede to being dark very fast, so I'm adding less than I normally would. And this one too much. This is better. The next step out when you're shading should look like a deeper variation of the color. It shouldn't look just black. It's my tendency to mix it so it just appears to be almost as dark as this dark value, and the way to get away from that is to add less. Okay, coming across to here, deepening these blues, shading. One more. And this is just the cerulean right out of the tube with dark mixed in it. It's usually fairly like a slate color, almost gray. It's one of my favorite colors to paint with. And because I didn't want to put more cerulean out, I didn't mix very much of it. So I'm going to try and mix a little bit more. I can imagine I'll want to use this. A little bit of that. And maybe I'll just push it right out here too, just a little bit darker. And before I move on, this mixture right here is Ultramarine Blue plus Burnt Umber. And this is titanium white on for the tinting. It's called tinting when you add white. And shading when you add dark. And this is just my extra pile that I made at the beginning. I'll find something to do with that. Might not have anything to do with the painting I'm gonna make today, but so there's that. Put this to the side for a second. And quickly before I move forward, I'm going to paint a color card. And then I'll have this left over to go over top of my painting. There we go. It's good when you're painting these cards. This paper is Reeves BFK, but you can use canvas paper or watercolor paper. But it's good to just put my little deer skull there for inspiration. It's good to have a really absorbent rag to keep cleaning off your brush and wiping that. So now the other problem is that from my underpainting earlier, my paint water has like a lot of blue pigment in it. I'm just gonna go get fresh water. That's important at this moment.